So I wanted to welcome everybody to Alumni Speaker Series. This is the last one, last session for the semester. And again, before we go any further, I want to thank Sarah Turner for everything that she's done, the fantastic work in putting these speakers together, helping to decide the topics, and putting up with me. There's no way that we could have done this without her. So I want to kudos to her. We encourage folks to listen closely and ask questions afterward. There will be a Q&A session. And we also want to remind you again that we are recording this for future reference. So excuse any issues ahead of time that might pop up with Zoom, but I don't think that we'll have that today. And again, thank you for joining us, and I'll turn things over to Sarah to introduce today's speaker.
Okay, thank you, Phil. Today we are fortunate to have Captain Jay White with us. Jay graduated from Concord as part of the fall class in 2010 with his BS in education for 5th grade through adult. He commissioned in the United States Marine Corps in March of 2011 as an infantry officer. Captain White was stationed at Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, where he deployed to Afghanistan with 2nd Battalion, 8th Marines in 2013. He deployed again in 2015 to Romania to conduct theater support cooperation missions in Eastern Europe. Captain White was then forward deployed to Okinawa, Japan from 2015 through 2018, where he conducted mission planning and training with partner nations throughout the Pacific. He was then stationed at Camp Pendleton, California, where he served as headquarters company commander with the 5th Marine Regiment from 2018 to 2020. Captain White is currently stationed in Quantico, Virginia, where he serves as the Lejeune Leadership Institute at Marine Corps University as program manager to facilitate training and mentoring of leadership concepts throughout the Marine Corps. So very successful career in the 10 short years since he's been out of college, and we're excited to have you, Jay, with us today. And with that, I'll turn it over to you.
All right. Hey, good morning to everybody out there. Appreciate the opportunity to speak to you today about transitioning, job finding, and just the challenges once you finish in college and some of the opportunities that are out there. Kind of talk about myself just real quick a little bit. I'm going to try to keep myself on the clock here, only take about 10 or 15 minutes. Not to talk about myself, but with going into the Marine Corps and why I want to talk to you today, it ties into we come to college, not sure about necessarily what we want to accomplish, but college and being at Concord, you had the opportunity to basically figure out what it is you're going to be doing, set some goals, and utilize the resources and people there to try and achieve those. During my time in the Marine Corps, there were a lot of steps that it took for me to become an officer. And Concord afforded me that opportunity to basically work, train toward that end, have to have a degree to be an officer. And while I was at the university, I was able to talk to some veterans who were around that area and have the opportunity to go to the officer selection office there in Blacksburg, Christiansburg area to talk with people there. But going forward, being in the Marine Corps, a lot of things are dictated to us. They tell us where to go, what to do, but every step along the way, I had to do a lot when it came to planning, especially when I moved to Okinawa, a lot of steps to get ready for that. And every position that I've been in, obviously a challenge because the expectations and missions change with every location and the responsibilities changed as we got there. At my last position, before I came to Marine Corps University, had the opportunity as a company commander to work with Marines, particularly a large group of Marines who were transitioning out of the Marine Corps at headquarters. So a lot of my time was spent basically counseling, mentoring, and working with Marines who were getting out of the Marine Corps. So we would come up with transition readiness plans on what the job opportunities were offered to them, what experiences they have while they were serving in the Marine Corps that were directly related to the career fields that they were seeking, and basically go over budget planning, where they wanted to live, where they wanted to end up, and work through those plans. So that way, when they got to their end of active service date, they were ready to step out the door and had everything in order. So that's what we're going to focus on today. And so what I'm going to do is first I'm going to pull up let me try that again. I did that wrong. I'm going to pull up the Excel or the Word document that I have sent to Sarah. So she'll be pushing this out to anybody who's interested. It's pretty simple stuff when it comes to your transition and prepping to leave from school. The first thing that you need to start with is just having a goal, having an idea of what it is you want to do, whether that's going on to higher education, looking for a specific job, and not necessarily with your degree. Again, I graduated with a education degree, and it's not until just recently here in the Marine Corps 10 years later that I'm actually in a position where I could say in a field where I'm employing that. Did training throughout my time over the last 9 years, and a lot of what I did learn in education applied directly to the jobs I was doing, but it's not exactly a one-to-one fit. So just keeping in mind, what's your goal? What's your end state? What's the job you're looking for? And what opportunities are there? So to start with that, you set a goal and then we set a plan. So what's on this first page? We have job resources. Again, I know there's a lot of educators who are coming out of Concord. So specifically, I did list in the next section how to transfer your teaching license if you're not staying inside the state, but maybe you're not a teacher, maybe you're an engineer, maybe you haven't had any job skills while you were in school, you haven't had the opportunity to do internships or work while you are taking your courses. So the first two are the USAID and USA Jobs. It's a large database of opportunities that are out there. USAID is actually pretty interesting because you don't necessarily have to have job skills or any skills inside the different career fields. And it gives you the opportunity to serve anywhere within the United States to help at need communities, facilitating whatever it is, the requirements or things that they're asking to help, doing construction, doing education, helping volunteer inside of state-sponsored or federal-sponsored programs, aid programs, lots of opportunities. Going down, again, I came into the Marine Corps coming out of college. I knew that was what I wanted to do. So I listed those websites. If this will scroll, all the various different websites for the Marines, the Navy, Air Force, Army, Coast Guard, National Guard, lots of opportunities in which you can serve in one capacity or another, whether active duty, reserve, or in the National Guard. I actually have several friends who did use the Guard to not only learn a trade, but then they were able to take that trade and do that as their full-time job. So I have one friend actually in West Virginia who learned how to be a generator mechanic, and that's actually what he does as full-time job. So not only is he a generator mechanic for the National Guard, that's what he does every day and has done quite well. So, could be something that you look at, maybe haven't thought about before. Could take a look at that. Specifically for the teachers, while I got out, I did transfer my teaching license from West Virginia to North Carolina because actually when I finished my first 4 years, I was thinking about possibly getting out of the Marine Corps. And it's actually pretty simple. A lot of states do have the ability for reciprocity to transfer your teaching certificates, and they acknowledge that the program that you're in is transferable. It does cost a little bit of money. There are admin and processing fees. When I did it at the time, it was about $150 total to get it transferred, but it's pretty simple. I have listed here South Carolina and North Carolina, specifically because South Carolina does have a lot of teaching opportunities right now. They have been focusing heavily on building new schools. There's a lot of growth around the York County, Charlotte area, and they put a lot of taxes toward innovating and building new schools. In York County alone, I know they've built 4 new schools over the last 5 years, and I know there's a couple more that are still being planned. So for those who are concerned about, especially with COVID, the changes in the teaching field and the fact that there's a lot of stress right now There are opportunities. There's still ability to find work as a teacher all over the country. So I listed those two specifically. Again, talk about goals. Moving's the biggest stressor. Again, every move I conducted, even though the Marine Corps has a process on how to do that, every move is stressful because you have to take the steps of making sure you pack up everything, figure out who your mover is going to be, and even through the Marine Corps, despite the fact we have assistance with that, it's still pretty tough, pretty stressful. So for everybody out there who's doing this on your own, a couple resources to look at. But one thing you can do, specifically if you have found a job and you know where you're going to be going, you can always ask your employer whether or not they're going to help facilitate with the moving costs. Recently just had a friend who moved to Georgia, is working with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. Again, that is a federal organization, but they did work through a process with him where on the front end, he had to pay for everything out of pocket, but they did reimburse him on the back end. So if you find the job that you're looking for, as part of the hiring process, you can always ask, hey, if I have to move across the country, are you going to help me with this? Is there a way to offset the costs? And have that be a part of the discussion and the hiring process. And then the last one, again, some people are looking at going into higher education anymore. The thing is, it's like the master's degree is the new bachelor's degree, and they talk about that a lot. When you look at jobs, the requirements that you need to have and the certifications to do the job that you want to do. So starting with the FAFSA checklist, what do you need to have to be prepared for grad school? Starting with, getting your transcripts from Concord to be able to submit them. I do believe that Concord still makes it your first set of transcripts are free. I don't know. Yes, no, I'm kind of looking at everybody. It could be. Yes. Yep. Okay. So yeah, the first time's free, right? But then usually there is a fee for having additional transcripts to be sent to your universities. So just something to keep in mind. So that's the first resource. The second one, talking about this, everything does have a cost. So this is not a completely encompassing document, but it's a good starting place for when you are getting ready to exit from Concord. So thinking about how much money do you spend? So figuring out your budget, understanding what you have. I know everybody's got a lot of debt, going through school, or you're paying for rent, or whatever situation you have daily costs. So really need to figure that out. Sit down and decide, okay, how much am I spending? What can I afford? And then keeping that reasonable. Once you figure that out, then you can also have a discussion with yourself on, all right, is this job going to help me pay the bills? So that's available to everybody. Won't go too depth into that. But this form is pretty simple. The Excel document, you just plug in the numbers, and as you plug in the numbers, it will calculate for it. So whatever your monthly income or expected monthly income based off of your new job, you can plug all that in there, figure it out, and kind of see where you can spend money, where you can cut costs, and set yourself up for success. So let's pull that off. So those are the two resources, but just talking about, again, as you leave college, the biggest thing that you have in play for you is networking. Every single one of my Marines who left the Marine Corps, I told them, hey, if you have any issues or you're having any problems, always call me, right? Call people that are still in the Marine Corps, because we're going to give you a hand. And I know there's a large discussion about how, veterans get out and they don't have the assistance, but I had at least, 10 or 15 Marines over the last 2 years who got out and said, hey, sir, I need a letter of recommendation, or, could you put in a good word for this job that I'm trying to get? And, that helped them out, because having those connections and people who can vouch for you and can also talk on your behalf is going to open doors. Not to mention, there may be opportunities out there that you're not aware of. So a lot of times we would talk about, hey, yep, you were in the infantry. You feel like you don't have a lot of job skills that are applicable to the workforce. but they do, right? Especially our squad leaders who come out of the Marines because they served as basically team leads, right? So they were managing 13 people. They had to manage programs. They had to manage assets. And sometimes it's a way they have to think a little bit differently on how they're selling themselves or pitching themselves. Same thing coming out of Concord. A lot of discussions with my friends who had gotten out, and we said, what were the benefits that we gained from going to university? And sometimes it's not so much the diploma, right? It is those connections that you've built with everybody while you're out to school, and just learning how to work with other people and people who have different views and ideas, and learning that social interaction and building those relationships. That carries a long way, especially when you're looking for work or going to apply for a higher education program, and learning how to sell yourself and just seeing things in a different way, and coming at problems in a different way. And before I forget it, on the last page of the resource, do have the example resume. Oh, nope, that one. Try that again. Apologize. There we go. So the example resume, and this was a big thing that I worked on with my Marines, because again, going into that idea like, hey, I was an infantry Marine. What do I have that I can explain to an employer that makes me marketable for this position? First thing about resume writing, especially coming out of school, is keep it simple. Have a summary of what have you done, especially let's say you're going into computer programming. Like, what is your experience with computer programming? Have you had a job with that? What are the classes that you've taken? What kind of coding courses have you taken while you were at school? Keep it straight, keep it clean, keep it to one page. That's the biggest thing that we learned from people going into job interviews. Keep it to one page. If you go past one page, the people who are hiring, they're going through lots of resumes. They don't want to have to read more than one. If you can't say it in one page, you're either putting too much or you're actually may not be qualified for the position because you're trying to sell yourself too much. But take the time on your resume. Think about being concise, and also think about what is the job I'm applying for. So if you're going to be working on wind farms, right, and you're a mechanic, again, explain your mechanic job. Don't talk about things that don't relate to the position, because again, it's interesting, but that's not what they're looking for. They want to know what makes you qualified for that position. So this is an example. This is a template. One resume isn't the answer for everything, because again, different companies and different businesses all have different expectations on format and what they want to see and what information they want you to share. And then finally, when it comes to basically going forward, be confident and sell yourself. Again, plenty of people getting out. Marines are like, hey, I'm not a mechanic. I'm not an engineer. And they went into a whole bunch of varieties of positions. But at the end of the day, you have to be confident in what you're doing and pursue the goal. Because in the pursuit of the goal, you may find out there's other things along the way that you're actually more interested in. Again, I came into the Marine Corps as an infantry officer, and while I've been doing that, I've done a lot of different things. I've done information operations, I've done operations planning, and now I'm here at Marine Corps University getting to teach leadership classes and guidance. And over the course of the time through all that, I did find that, yes, I do enjoy teaching. I've done that a lot, especially in the training. Interestingly enough, again, like I said, the education degree, people said, oh, that's not applicable to the military, but having to do training plans, back plan from what's the end state. Basically, I learned how to do all of that while I was going through the education program. That what's the end state? What are we trying to teach? What are the steps on how to get there? And then being able to back plan it. So don't get intimidated if it's something you had never thought about. It's something new. You have to find what are the things that are relatable. And a lot of times what you're going to find is in the pursuit of whatever that goal is, you may find something else along the way You go, hey, actually, I'm really good at this. I really enjoy this. And you take yourself in a new path. So don't be afraid of the transition, so to speak. Be open to the opportunities that are out there. You may not end up exactly where you thought you're going to be. For me, like 10 years coming in the Marine Corps, the experiences and opportunities I had over the last 10 years would never have imagined, such as I actually ran into Dr. Manzo while we were in Korea, which was quite a wild experience, running into each other at the DMZ. So be open to the possibilities, and don't be afraid to try new things. So that's about 15 minutes of talking. So I want to give that rest of the time to everybody to ask questions if anybody has anything.
Thank you, Jay. Those are some excellent points. I'll open the floor to any questions or comments now. Anybody have anything for Jay?
Jay, I do have a question. What was there one thing in particular or an experience or something that you did as a college student or you had, while you were at Concord that you think really helped you, kind of get started on this path and to be able to go through these transitions and to really have been able to do, so well in your career so far?
Yeah. So one thing I'm still very happy about was I was one of the founding fathers for Chi Omega Psi, and we started the fraternity. And that was an interesting experience because when we did it at the time, we had one, no idea what we were doing. But two, it really, especially now, 10 years later, I'm still in contact with all those guys that we were in the fraternity. We keep in touch with each other. We've helped each other out. Again, the one guy who was doing the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, he called me up. He goes, hey, I'm doing this. You're in the military. You understand how this works. So could you help walk me through this process? I was able to help with that. So it was a good experience because got to learn to work with other people, again, trying to do something new, and just kind of figuring it out and realize, like, even if it hadn't worked out in the long run and like maybe the fraternity had like fallen apart after a couple of years, it was okay, right? Because we tried something new. But also just going through the education program. Again, at the time, I had plenty of people saying, hey, you're getting a degree in education, but you're not going to use it. But I have gotten to use more of that training and knowledge that I gained going through the program. And interestingly enough, the Marine Corps has written a new doctrinal publication on learning, and we're really trying to focus throughout the Marine Corps and the military to really address how we do teaching and how we do training, and really focusing on adult education models, because we do have a very, hey, here's the PowerPoint, here's how you do it. I showed you how to do it. I told you how to do it. Now go execute it. But that's not an effective means of like really reaching out and having people learn. So we're really trying to tackle that right now. And so I'm actually in finally a place where I can kind of address and be a part of that. So definitely speak to my time just going through the education department, set me up more for success than I would have realized during my time in the Marines.
Thank you.
Jay, it's really good to hear your comments about the teaching program. I taught in business, but I also taught some education classes. And I used to tell my students, I think it's important for you to know you could be a corporate trainer, but I never thought about being a trainer in the military. I mean, an educator in the military, we call it training in corporations, but I think those same rules do apply across the board. So that's really good to hear. I wonder if there's something, your comments about their fraternity and trying something new. I think it's hard, and it's part of a growth process, but to get students to understand how important it is to just reach out and do something different, just try something. And do you have any ideas about how to make them less afraid to do that? I think it comes natural to some people, and to others, it's like terrifying.
Yeah, no, it's kind of interesting because, again, in the Marine Corps, the average age of Marines is anywhere between, 18 to 22, and the Marine Corps is the youngest of the military branches. That is a really large population of people. So you're talking about college age men and women, and you have some who are just absolute go-getters who will try anything, won't think twice about it, which also causes problems. But then you do have some who are completely content to, go back to their barracks room or go home and kind of just play video games and sit around and recuperate, right? And it is a challenge to kind of get people out of their shell, right? Because just because you're in the military doesn't mean you're an extrovert and like being around people. So what we really found is, just providing those opportunities, and just saying like, hey, you can try it, right? And be with a group of friends or be with a group of people who you trust, and just go do it. A lot of times we talk about it being mandatory fun days that the command has put together, but
mandatory fun.
Yeah, mandatory fun. But but what we try to do as leaders is come up with new things or new activities that, maybe the Marines haven't done. So while I was at 5th Marines, we're next to some of the best surfing available in the world. Like, it's very popular surf spots. So there were actually several surfing groups that consisted of officers and staff NCOs who would encourage Marines to come out and be like, hey, we get it. You've never surfed before, right? But it's actually a lot of fun. Yes, you're going to fall a lot. Yes, you're going to fail a lot. But, when you have people who maybe just learned how to surf 6 months ago and like, hey, I can surf now. It just takes time, and you're with a group of people who you trust, and you can see where they've gone and what they've done, and just be encouraging. It helps them to see, oh, I can do that too, right? But if a lot of times the roadblock becomes, well, I've never done it, I'm not sure, and our own anxiety at failing. But to really encourage people to get out there and try things, you have to have somebody who's willing to kind of walk through it with them, and just be realistic about, hey, I failed too. Because I think there's a lot of times, once we're good at something, there's a tendency well, it's not that hard, or we don't talk about all the failures and faults that we had along the way, right? So one thing I did while we had my company was we after action everything, but after we would after action things, I would also sit with our NCOs, the corporals and the sergeants, and be like, okay, what did we do wrong, but what did we do well? And then also taking myself, what could I have done better? Because a lot of times we don't want to say we messed up, or we did everything perfect. We want to say we did everything well, but we all can be open and honest about, where our failings were. So being able to show people something new, and then talking about, yeah, I can do it now, but here were all the missteps and faults I had along the way, helps, I think, encourage people to keep trying, because you're not going to have necessarily striking success right out the gate. You're going to have setbacks. And so just, putting yourself out there and finding, giving it a go, you're going to learn something about yourself. But it helps when you have somebody who's tried it before and talk about, yeah, here were the places where I failed. Here's where I struggled too. And so that way they don't feel like, oh, it's just me and I just can't do it.
Those are very good points. Thank you.
Jay, I think those points about the building the trust and reviewing things as groups and as individuals both are really key points to growth in any project. And I know the Marines is quite well known for their teaching and planning. So, that is something I think that we could apply to everyday life about what works and what doesn't work, and being willing to say, hey, I tried this, it didn't work. So we'll try something new. So yeah, I think that those the ways to lessen people's fears, especially young college students coming in for the first semester, I think those are excellent points. Does anyone have anything else for Jay? Jay, one of the things that you mentioned earlier about networking is so important. It's something that we've tried to do here in the Career Services Office to let people know how important that it is. Dr. Bogus and I were just talking before the meeting about all of the Concord alumni groups that are all over the world, and how that they really stick together, and there's that connection. So, that's something that we've tried to imprint upon our students, that you may not have the college experience that you had wished for, but it is a college experience, and you're going through it with a lot of other folks who are going through the same things, that have the same fears and questions. And so, that point, that networking thing is absolutely important. Cannot be understressed enough, especially when we're trying to find jobs as they graduate.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. Again, over the last 10 years, like I said, I've stayed in contact with so many people I went to Concord with, and a lot of them still live up in West Virginia, around the Charleston area, and the number of times that I've called them because I have family that lives up there, and be like, hey, do you mind helping out my sister who also graduated from Concord, like she needs a hand with something, or just stopping in to say hello, or all of us talking like, hey, I'm between jobs, what's out there, what's available, right? It definitely is a group of people that we've been able to lean on each other and keep in contact. And it was unfortunate we couldn't have homecoming this year, because I was kind of hoping to do that, but even though homecoming got canceled due to COVID, to physically be there, all our friends still stayed in contact and talk to each other and maintain those relationships. So that is a huge part of it, because again, everybody is going to have challenges. Everybody's going to have struggles or things that come up, and you can always lean on those relationships to kind of weather whatever storm you're going through, and come out the other side, because you do have those shared experiences and know each other.
Exactly. Jay, you mentioned working with Marines who are transitioning out of service. Could you speak a little bit about what types of jobs they're finding, and in particular, computer coding?
Yeah, so I actually have a Marine who, well, there's another one who's about to get out, but they were working within our S6 shop, which is our communications section for the company, and just very, very proficient at doing coding and doing network security. And that obviously is a growing industry right now, especially the fact that as we're doing a video teleconference. And so part of what Sergeant Trice was able to do was he did receive some certifications through the Marine Corps, but I stayed in touch with him, and he pointed out that, yeah, you do get training through the military, that some of those skills are directly transferable, and such as his case, to doing network security. But the industry also has its own regulations and qualifications that they need for you to be able to conduct those jobs. And so he actually found out not all of his skill sets transferred over, and not all of his certifications transferred over. But the company was like, hey, that's okay. We're going to pay to send you to the classes so you can get certified and take the test and be able to do the job, because he was able to go in and demonstrate he knew what he was doing. He just didn't have the certifications the right certifications to be doing that. And same thing with the Marine, who he should be getting out in about 6 months. So he's actually started that process right now. So to kind of talk to that, the Marine Corps and the military, all the branches of service do this. While you're in, they have training programs that are funded through Marine Corps Community Services, and anywhere from 12 to 18 months before leaving service. And most people's contracts are anywhere between 4 to 6 years is how long they sign up for. But 18 months from leaving service, they have the ability to go to these transition readiness courses. So they have welding classes, they have computer programming classes. I think there's some electrician classes that they offer. So they do try to promote these to military members before they leave the service to get the certifications that are directly transferable to the various jobs they have. The military also, through the VA website, has a host of programs. I actually learned a lot while I was company commander of how many things are actually out there. There's a lot of veteran services, VA services that, again, follow on education for again, welding, electrician, plumbing. They have the teacher education transfer program. I had looked at that while I was a lieutenant, and even for Marines who, like, I already have my degree for education, but Marines who had never gone to college to get a teaching certificate, they have programs to actually facilitate getting them the certifications and at least getting their foot in the door. And then after they were hired as a teacher for whatever state they were looking at, they would then work with them to have them go through the education program and get the certifications and be able to be a certified teacher within the state. So what I saw a lot of, though, was a lot of my Marines were going to those electrician, mechanic, plumbing jobs. There's a great demand right now for those skilled labor jobs, and that's where a lot of them were going. But yeah, our communications Marines were focused heavily on those programs for computer coding that were offered through the Marine Corps to prep them and get them ready to try and compete for those cyber jobs that are available out there.
Jay, one of the things we're trying to do here at Concord campus-wide is to stress the importance of a 4-year degree. And I know that there's a lot of civilian positions that are open for jobs with the military. Can you expand on that a little bit about what positions, of course, accounting, business, teaching, those types of positions that are available with the military?
Yeah, no, I'm glad you asked that, because case in point, here at Marine Corps University, quite a few professors who are here, they're civilians, they're GS positions, so they're not contractors, right? They are employees of the school. We have, just like Concord, we have a business administration, we have a registrar's office. Again, we have professors who teach here. And for those teachers, there are a lot of teaching positions within the military all around the world. While I was in Okinawa, they have Kobayashi High School. So that, they need civilians who are there to teach and educate the children of the military families, right? So those are positions that are available. There are finance and administrative jobs all throughout the military that you can find. I'm pretty sure it's through I think it's USA Gov. It may be through that USA job site, but I do know there is a government website that speaks to those positions. And same thing with technology, plenty of growth in the cyber and now Space Force, and in requiring people with coding and knowledge of networks and systems. So there are a lot of opportunities through the federal government and related to the military that aren't even necessarily being an officer or serving as an enlisted member. There are quite a few civilian positions, and like I said earlier, it's just a matter of if that's something you're interested in, just making the phone call, doing a little bit of legwork and research, or reaching out to somebody like myself and asking like, hey, what's out there? And I know plenty of people, especially in the military, happy to talk about what they do and point people in the right direction to get them started.
Okay. Jay, how are you on your time? I don't want to impose on you.
No, I'm good. I can take the next 15 minutes if you like. We're on my lunch break. So
okay, great. Okay. One of the things that I try to talk to students about is gaining job experience, but part of that gaining the experience is actually experiencing the job. And so when you're talking about the resumes, little things that students have learned or picked up while they were in the military, or just things that seem like everyday knowledge can be used for those resumes. Can you give us a quick example of some of the things that folks may overlook that they could put on the resume that would make them more marketable?
Yeah, no. So one thing that I talked about with my Marines was, especially the guys who were in the infantry, going back to that example, for my squad leaders, those men and women were in charge of 12 to 13 people. So they just were like, hey, I'm an infantry Marine. I don't have anything that's directly transferable to a civilian position. And it's like, no, you need to look at it different, because you were in charge of 13 other people. You did manage training, you managed resources, right? You did several different things that are management, lower middle management type positions when it comes to dealing with personnel, right? Which can also be transferred to HR, because those squad leaders deal with helping with their medical, helping with pay issues, dealing with other training. So that's one example. And to take it to the college perspective, for those people who are in the different groups around campus, so whether it's fraternities, sororities, Blue Key Honor Society, whether they're managing the history club, right? You've had experience organizing, planning, and putting programs together. So you may think of it was something fun I was doing, but that's a way to look at it, where you help to build something and put it together, which shows that you do have, again, management skills, planning skills that translate into doing other jobs. One thing we talked about was hobbies, right? And I actually just had this conversation with my boss the other day. We were talking about hobbies, and I think a lot of times people look at their hobby as something that, oh, this is just something I do for fun. But depending on what it is, that could be something that you can translate into a job opportunity, right? Plenty of people, the rise of the gig industry and people doing like part-time work. I have a friend who graduated with an art degree, and now he has his own small business that he's running in Oregon. Invested in a laser printer, and so he's able to do designs and create personalized items. And so he took what he really loved doing, art, and was able to build a small business, right? So not working for anybody, he was able to take what he was already good at and kind of try something and figured it out, and now he's doing well on his own. Or another example, another friend is like made pizza. So what is it? It's Pizzas and Cream, I think, there in West Virginia, right? He that was something they were doing at home, and people are like, man, this is really great stuff. You guys should turn this into a business, and bam, there you go. So I think the biggest message would be don't write anything off. Have confidence in what it is you like, what it is you're good at, and don't think that anything isn't valuable. It's a matter of taking a look at it and saying, okay, what is the value in whether or not I've spent time volunteering my time, or there's a hobby that I do on the side, and how those skills can translate, because a lot of times you have more skills and abilities than you realize, but we as people have a tendency to undersell ourselves. Some people don't, but I did find a lot of times talking with Marines that they're like, no, I don't have anything to offer. I don't have, all these great skills. But then when you would sit down and go, okay, what have you done? Okay, let's think about, to a prospective employer, like how they might view that, and then build it out. And then by the time we finish putting the resume together, it's like, that's pretty solid. You actually sound like somebody who, even if you don't have the job skills, is somebody I can train, because you have a lot of experiences, but you have to be able to talk about them. And I think a lot of times we as people tend to sell ourselves short on what we have or haven't done.
I think that's right. And the hobby point is excellent. And I think it all goes back to the confidence thing that you were talking about earlier. Anyone else have anything? All right. Once again, thank you for discussing and joining us for today's discussion. Thank you for your participation. And of course, thank you to Jay for participating and his service to our country. And that will conclude the Fall 2020 Alumni Speaker Series. But we'll be back in the spring, and Sarah's already working on those speakers. So if you have any requests or suggestions, let us know.
Thanks, Jay.
Appreciate it. Thank you, everybody.
Bye.